With NHL hockey looming, you don't want to miss a single episode of your daily source for fantasy hockey news and betting breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Friday edition, and we're hitting the Central Division to break down every single squad, 8 through 1, and some fantasy studs. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the Fantasy Hockey Lab, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. And on this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Nothing but love, shout-outs, and salutes for the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. We wouldn't be here without y'all. We just cracked the top 30 in fantasy sports podcasts in America, top 10 in Canada, and legit could not do it without everyone out there. I also couldn't do it without my boy, Mr. Roden. So shout out to all of y'all. Shout out to you,
yes,
Steele,
sir.
because we have been getting after it on this podcast. No rest for the wicked, and we're going to push forward. On the Central Division on today's episode, first and foremost, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with FanDuel and place your first $5 bet and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Over to you right away to kick this one off, Mr. Roden. 8 through 1, Central Division, a club near and dear to your heart in the mix here in the Minnesota Wild. Intrigued to talk to you about that. How this division breaks down, I think the top is pretty clear, but the bottom through 3, a little interesting. So, who you looking at in the 8 spot? Some fantasy studs and some teams that need to do a lot more to make the playoffs than they did last year.
Look, this is an interesting division, and I don't know about you, Flip, but I'm looking at the Central as the second toughest division in the National Hockey League right now, especially with the moves that were made in the offseason for some of these clubs. Yeah. And again, there's a lot of good teams in this division, but only the top 3, potentially 4, maybe 5 get into the playoffs. At number 8, though, I think it's pretty obvious. It's the Chicago Blackhawks still. They're not ready to make that leap yet. They're not ready to move up the standings. They're still a work in progress, but they have done a lot to address those holes that this team has seen over the last couple of years. They bring in Tyler Bertuzzi. They bring in Teuvo Teravainen. They get Taylor Hall fully healthy as well. Nick Foligno is their new captain. Pat Maroon on the bottom 6 group. TJ Brody on the blue line as well. Obviously, they still have Peter Mrazek. They bring in Laurent Brossoit, who could potentially take that starting position if things go south for Mrazek, which is a possibility because he played really well. He plays really well as a backup, but he could be getting into that starting role for the Chicago Blackhawks. So for me, they remain the same. They're at the bottom of the Central Division. You know how I feel about Taylor Hall this upcoming season. Definitely a high risk, high reward type of player. But I think if he continues to, if he plays on that top line with Connor Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi, which he is projected as of right now on that second line with Kurashev and Mikheyev, which I'm not too sure about that. But if he gets on that top line with Bedard and Tyler Bertuzzi, I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be really good on the power play as well. Again, he's been strengthening. He's been fully healthy this offseason. He's setting some lofty goals for himself. He wants to get back to that 30-goal mark. And from what I've been reading, I really like the faith and the confidence of this guy. So high risk, high reward. I'm going with Taylor Hall, but they come in at number 8 for me.
I appreciate that Taylor Hall pick, and I think you actually took him in one of our listener league drafts.
I'm taking him in 2 of our leagues, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So look, this isn't just lip service, people. We're out here laying our mouths where our money are, or whatever. You know the saying. However, the Chicago Blackhawks deal, take this in. Goal differential wise last year and I'm just going to refer to Arizona now forever as Utah Yeti. The Yeti, minus 18, Wild, minus 12, Blues, minus 11. So those 5 through 7 teams, pretty close. Then you got the Chicago Blackhawks at a goal differential of minus 111. So let's just say It's going to take more than a Tyler Bertuzzi and a couple of tweaks here for this team to turn it around in the nature it's going to leapfrog some of these good clubs, which you alluded to. This is still a very tough division. I'm going to power rank them very quickly. I'm going to go Atlantic first, Central at number 2, probably the Metro at 3, and I'm going to throw the Pacific under the bus at 4. Anyway, the Chicago Blackhawks, I look at it like this. It's going to take some time. They got Connor Bedard. He is going to have 100-point seasons written all over him for the rest of his career. Who knows, Steele? Maybe he gets up to 90 points this year. I could see it. Knocking on the door, I could see it. Let me spit this out. Toivu Teravainen getting to play with Connor Bedard. Speaking of sticking to your guns, I love this opportunity for a player in the past. I wanted to bring this up, who has put up 60-plus points multiple times in his career, even touching 76 a couple of years ago. He's been banged up a little bit, but he's a playmaker. And if you're getting the biscuit over to Bedard, I like what this could mean for Teravainen's fantasy value. The Blackhawks come in at 8. That's a fact. Speaking of the Yeti, this is where things get interesting. And much in the same vein as the as the Chicago Blackhawks deal, you know it's been a long day. There is a lot to like about this Utah club. Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, Clayton Keller, Barrett Hayton, Nick Schmaltz, and the new one that I'm looking at in a big, big way in Mikhail Sergachev. However, I just don't see it when I look at the rest of the teams in this division. They come in at 7 for me. Lots of sneaky good value. Connor Ingram, Karel Vejmelka. Maybe those are your 0G third goaltender or your second goaltender options. I think Utah comes in at 7 for me still. But honestly, 7, 6, and 5 here, I think you could pretty much plug and play. These next 3 teams we talk about, I don't think are the toast of this division.
Yeah, they really aren't. I actually went with the St. Louis Blues at number 7. And again, this is, that you can mix and match with these guys where you want to place them or these organization. I went with the St. Louis Blues. Honestly, I don't like the overall look of this team. And obviously the injury to Torrey Krug being out for the entirety of the season plays a part in this decision for me as well. But when I look at this top 6 group, I mean, I like Robert Thomas. We like Jake Neighbors and, the ability to bring the physicality, but also have a goal scoring touch for this organization. Jordan Kyrou is still going to get his own, but you have Dylan Holloway. You did the offer sheet this offseason. You get Dylan Holloway. He's done really nothing throughout his NHL career with the Edmonton Oilers. 18 points in 90 games. Hasn't been very an outstanding player for a guy that was drafted 14th overall in the first round by the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm not really sure what obviously he's going to get some opportunities, getting a lot more average time on ice. I just don't know if he has it in him to be a breakout player or, show potential of what he could be. I'm not liking the bottom 6. I still think Kasperi Kapanen's kind of an iffy player. Matthew Joseph, all those guys. The blue line for me is nothing special. I think the bread and butter for this team is obviously those 2 guys, Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, and then Jordan Binnington's right there as well. But I have them at number 7. They're going to take, for me, a little bit of a dip down from where they placed last year. They finished with 92 points. I honestly see this team finishing somewhere around the 80 to 82 point mark. I think it's going to be a significant drop for this organization.
Jordan Binnington saved this club's bacon last season. He was sensational for the most part, especially when it comes. Yeah, come back into focus, pal.
Yeah, I'm looking for that.
Get a good look at my boy here. Anyway, look, I have to agree with you, and this was close for me too because I have them at 6. And I do fully agree with your take here. So thank you very much for covering it quite eloquently, if I do say so myself. When I look at this Blues roster, though, Steele, I really am starting to think, where is the goal production coming from? Robert Thomas, Buchnevich, Jake Neighbors, you're relying on these guys that, look, we love Robert Thomas. Buchnevich is a player that I took myself. He's got some offensive flair. Maybe in another market, he has a lot more production. You got guys up there, like you mentioned. They bring in Joseph. You got Texier. You got Holloway. I just don't see it. And when it comes down to the blue paint as well, I just got to say this. As much as Jordan Binnington was great last year, and they're still invested into this goaltender, that's Joel Hofer's crease in the very, very near future. So do not sleep for a hot second on that goaltender, who I can see, if Binnington goes down with injury and he's able to step in and take that crease, they might be a little bit less inclined to give Binnington that run out. However, he's a cup champ. He's still making big money. The time will come for Hofer. When I look at this Blues team, I got to bring it up, especially for my keeper dynasty people. Let's continue to talk about this tough Central Division right after the break. Steele will get his camera issues organized, I hope, and then we'll break down the rest of 5 through 1, get Steele's opinion on his Minnesota Wild. You know I'm ready for that. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you got to get this season going with a big return on America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you get out the latest stats, view live, play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page you place your bets. You can get started right now with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. I hope everybody enjoyed that close-up of myself right there.
Yeah,
if you're watching on YouTube, I got a fresh shave going.
Yeah, you got the duster. The duster's ready.
Yeah, the duster's looking good right now. Absolutely feeling myself. So I hope you appreciate it out there.
And you should.
I'm looking good. Got the clean shave going. But let's get back to the Central Division.
Yeah, more importantly,
the Central Division. I have the Utah Hockey Club. I'm going to go with the Hockey Club for now, even though I do want it to be Yeti. But Utah Hockey Club at 6. And again, I just like the overall look of this offensive group a lot more than the St. Louis Blues. Fair. I think bringing in Mikhail Sergachev as well is massive for this organization, and it's massive for his fantasy value. So if you drafted him, this is a guy that could definitely outperform his ADP because of, again, being in that spotlight, being the #1 guy now, like he was that one season in Tampa Bay. But yeah, I mean, the Utah Hockey Club, look, this is pretty much the exact same team from the Arizona Coyotes, which again, it's like same team, just different, just in a different area or in a different state. But I mean, this team has also developed. They're bringing in new guys. They're bringing in all these young prospects that they've had going for a while. We like the outlook of Dylan Guenther and what he can bring offensively. We still like Lawson Krause and his fantasy value. Clayton Keller is probably one of the most underrated left wingers in the National Hockey League as well. And then you and I both really like Karel Vejmelka and Connor Ingram and what they do in the crease, being the tandem that's going for them. Mm-hmm. So overall, I think this is a better team than the St. Louis Blues. And again, that has to do with a few injuries with the St. Louis Blues organization. But there's a lot to like about this team. Josh Doan getting in there, Matthias Maselli getting in there, Dylan Guenther as well, Barrett Hayton. Can he take that stepping out season as well? I think he can. And for me, Utah comes in at number 6. But they're not number 5. Because number 5, I hate putting them this low, but it's the Minnesota Wild for me. Yep. What about you?
I got them at 5, and I'm just wanted to throw this out there. This is a team, despite what we would say is probably one of their weaknesses for sure, is that lack of scoring depth. And they actually scoring punch. They finished with the 10th best power play last year, Steele. So they can get it done on the man advantage, and that tells me that maybe they just needed to make some tweaks, and there wasn't a whole lot of those to be mentioned. And then I read into them a little bit more. Steele, only the Anaheim Ducks and New York Islanders had a worse penalty kill. So they got to tighten it up on the defensive end. These are some things, though, that I think when it comes to the team this year, if they can turn it around, I wouldn't be surprised if they finish higher. Right now and on paper and coming into this season, I got to stick to my guns on this one. I like to throw that term out there. The Minnesota Wild, that top line, Zuccarello, Hartman, Kaprizov, they've shown that they can have chemistry and be a really good line. Who I'm looking at is the Boldy, Eriksson, Ek combination, and who plays alongside them right now. It's Marcus Johansson. I don't know if they experiment and move Foligno up the lineup or what happens. But when I'm looking at this team's offensive success, you know what you're going to get from those top 3 guys. And I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure on a young player in Boldy, but when you've seen what this kid can do, and I know everyone in the fantasy game has talked about breakout for this kid, and I'm with you. I drafted him. He's still got to do it and get it done on the ice. If they can, I could see this club finishing higher. You got Wallstad in there. You got Gustafsson. If those don't work out, you got Flower. The team can do something. Brock Faber on the back end. It comes down to me, and I hate to put it all on a young kid in Boldy. It comes down to if they can get some secondary scoring punch and tighten up those special teams. But they come in at 5 for me as well.
I love the fact that you said exactly that. This is a team that can surprise us and finish higher up the standings. And, you know, again, I have them at number 5, but I could also see them finishing at the number 4, potentially number 3 in the Central Division at the max. But for me, they come in at number 5, and it's for all the reasons you just said. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov is a dominating force in the National Hockey League. Look at the difference between him finishing atop this organization between Matt Boldy, who finished second, almost a 30-point difference between Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy. So Kaprizov has been able to do this by himself since he entered the NHL, since he's been with this organization for the last 4 or 5 seasons. Just imagine what he can do when Matt Boldy, Matt Boldy's only 22. What do you think Kaprizov is going to be able to do when Matt Boldy gets his game going a little bit when he gets to 24 years old? What's going to happen when Brock Faber gets his game going as well when he gets a couple more seasons in the National Hockey League? He finished with 40 points last season.
47 points for Faber.
47 points for Brock Faber. So a couple more years from these young guys. Matt Boldy, 22 years old. Brock Faber, 21 years old. Marco Rossi, 22 years old. Give them a couple more years and they're going to start dominating. But it's also go back to what I said before. This is an organization that struggles to bring in top-tier guys who are already right there at superstar level and getting them to come to Minnesota. If somehow they can entice a guy in the offseason as a free agent to come play with Kirill Kaprizov, who knows what Kaprizov's ceiling could be. He could get over he could be getting over 100 or close to 120 points. So he's doing it by himself right now. He got 97 points last year in 75 games. He's 26 years old. And I know there's the rumors going around about Chicago wanting to take a big stab at him.
I don't know if
I'm not buying into that either, but even with the rumors, it's already come out from the owner of the Minnesota Wild. He's come out and said, he's like, we're going to throw the bag at him. We're going to get whatever he wants. So I love that from the owner. I love that from the organization. And again, for me, Kirill Kaprizov, he's one of the bad mans in the National Hockey League right now. So, I love him. I love my Minnesota Wild. They could finish higher, but they come in at number 5.
Such a pure shooter for Kill Bill the Thrill. Nasty.
Oh, yeah. Buddy.
Very nasty. I wanted to have him in a couple of our drafts, and it just didn't happen. Kudos to those GMs out there that got him. Number 4, the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think the Winnipeg Jets deserve to be any lower, but I know they don't deserve to be any higher. So they come in right here at 4. They have wild card bubble team written all over them. And I look at it this way. I'm comfortable with their forward group. Kyle Connor, Scheifele, Velarde up front. I got a double circle on Velarde because when he's healthy, he's good. And Scheifele and Connor, those are 2 good pieces. I'm not here for the Scheifele slander. Gabe Velarde on that wing, that could be huge. That's my fantasy take for this team. Take a look at Gabe Velarde. The second line, Perfetti, Ehlers. Their third line, I love Lowry, Appleton, Niederreiter. You got Buck in the net holding it down. It's the blue line steal. Josh Morrissey has overachieved for the last couple of years. I understand he fills out the peripherals. I understand I'm probably going to take some heat for this one. He's their number 1 D-man. I just have concerns about his offensive production. I say this every year, and somehow the last couple he just keeps doing it. I just don't love Josh Morrissey as a fantasy piece. That's me. I said it. Then Dylan DeMello, Dylan Sandberg, Hayden Fleury, Colin Miller. My concerns for this team are what's happened to them in the past, Steele. Hellebuck sees far too much rubber. They have to run him out there 60, 65 games. And with a blue line like this, I'm just concerned about what Hellebuck... Look, he's looked gassed the last couple of postseasons because of how much action he sees. So they come in at 4 for me, but I got a little eye on Gabe Velarde on that top line. That could be a sneaky ad for me coming up soon.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be getting over 60 games once again because I don't know if Capo Kakinen is the guy who love backing him up. But look, that's the whole reason why I also have the Winnipeg Jets at number 4. I'm very set and sound on this forward group moving forward. The blue line is probably their weakness right now. I actually do like Josh Morrissey. I do like Neil Pionk. I like those guys. fantasy-wise even, but it's definitely their weakness
that's
right
just
now.
me.
Colin Miller, Dylan Sandberg, Dylan DeMello, all those guys. I mean, Logan Stanley's injured, I believe, right now. David Gustafson. So I understand it, but Connor Hellebuyck, he's the best fantasy goaltender, best fantasy hockey goaltender to me. He's number one, hands down. He's the best goaltender you're going to get out in the market. If he's not drafted first, I don't know what those people are doing right now. But look, when you look at this team, they're mediocre offensively. They finished 15th in goals for last season, but they finished first in goals against. So they're a strong team defensively. Obviously, they have a very strong goaltender in Connor Hellebuyck. So it goes as far as Connor Hellebuck's willing to take them, and he takes them to the playoffs every single season. They've usually been a top 3 team. So they come in at number 4. For me, they're on the bubble for a playoff team. I could see them dropping a little bit depending on what happens this season. But I think like exactly what you said, they don't deserve to be lower. They don't deserve to be higher. They come in at number 4 for both of us. We'll get to our top 3 teams in the Central Division next, coming after the break. Again, make sure you're staying tuned in for the Pacific Division breakdown next week and everything you need to know on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support Monday through Friday. So thank you so much for all that love this offseason. And we can't be more excited for puck to drop tonight. Global Series, Buffalo Sabres, New Jersey Devils. But let's get back to the Central Division. Flip, I don't think you're going to be very happy with my number 3 placement here, but I'll throw it over to you. I'll throw it over to you, my friend.
Are you alluding to having the Dallas Stars at 3? Is that what's about to happen here?
I'll get to it then. Dallas Stars at number 3. Dallas Stars for me coming at number 3. I think, again, this is why I have the Central Division. Let me get it out.
Okay, I'm just tired still. I don't know about this one.
This is why I have the Central Division as the second toughest division in the National Hockey League, because I really do think between the Colorado Avalanche, the Nashville Predators, and the Dallas Stars, these 3 teams are going to finish within a point of one another. So it's going to be a tight race, a very.
I like this. I like that cop out.
It's a cop out.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm going with the Dallas Stars at number 3 in the Central Division. I mean, look, the team is pretty much the exact same. I know they lost Joe Pavelski, your boy over there, 50-year-old Joe Pavelski. Let me get the stats up right now. But look, they're pretty much running it back. They got Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz. We love Wyatt Johnston, obviously. It's pretty much the exact same team. They're going to have Logan Stankoven in there full time. They bring in Matt Dumba, Ilya Labushkin, so the defensive group changes a little bit. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But they have one of also the best goaltenders in the league, as well as fantasy goaltenders in Jake Ottinger. Probably, I forget where I put him on our breakdown, our top 10 goaltender for fantasy leagues this upcoming season, but he's incredible. He's absolutely been dialed in for this Dallas Stars team. I just like the Nashville Predators a little bit more from the acquisitions they made this offseason. I think it's going to be a tight race for all 3 of these teams. I just have the Dallas Stars falling down a little bit and falling in that 3rd spot.
Yeah, okay. Shout out to Loki one time in the background there. I appreciate this. And look,
I don't know if you do.
No, I don't. And I'm just trying to be polite to my pal here. And I'll just say this. Bringing in pieces to a team, it's sexy. It's going to mean big things for the Nashville Predators. However, there are a lot of new faces playing with new players. And you said it yourself, the Dallas Stars team are basically running back the same squad. And I'm looking at Miro Heiskanen and Wyatt Johnston as 2 players set to explode. And I'll get to that in a second. Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault. In the middle, Tommy Novak is the fantasy piece that I'm looking at on that Nashville team. And that could be a very sneaky ad. So let me get that out of the way first. The Nashville Predators just 1 year ago, Steele, had the 24th best penalty kill in the NHL. They also, 22nd. They also, on the power play, were mediocre. They sat at 16th in the NHL. I know Marchessault, Shea, and Stammer are going to help those numbers. But just overnight, it doesn't always happen. There could be growing pains. and I'm looking at a Dallas Stars club that, in my opinion, is much more complete. Saros Ottinger, to me, if you're going on that comparison, that's 1A, 1B. I think we're splitting hairs here. Maybe you lean to Saros because he has a bigger track record, and I'd be fine with that. So other than that, though, I think these two teams are very evenly matched. And so I appreciate what you're saying in terms of down to the 1 or 2 points, but I've got the Nashville Predators at 3. This Dallas Stars club was only 1 win away from knocking on the door for the Western Conference championship. Look, they come in at 3 for the Preds. Are we going to agree at least that the Avs come in at 2, or do you? What's going on here? Just maybe I got to save because we're almost at 30 minutes. You know what it is, guys. We get you in and out in 30. So Preds at 3 for me, Stars at 3 for you. I disagree. Let's see what happens. Who you got at 2?
Well, I got the Nashville Predators at 2. I have the Nashville Predators at the 2 spot. And again, for me, I'm looking at this team again. They bring in Brady Shea, pair him up with Roman Josi. They bring in Jonathan Marchessault, so they bring in Steven Stamkos to get the offensive group going a little bit more. By the way, they finished 10th in goals for last season. So they again,
Good one.
like they had a young team last year. They had young players, and then they had their veteran players, and they had Philip Forsberg, who's in his prime right now. So with all that being said, they bring in all these offensive juggernauts and Marchessault and Steven Stamkos to help on the power play to continue helping in the top 6 forward group. They're only going to get better, in my opinion. So they finished 10th last year. I see them finishing even higher in goals for. They finished 13th in goals against. I expect UC Saros to be a lot better this season. He had a down season last year. So I expect everything to be upgraded, both the offense, both the defense, and both the goaltending tandem of Saros and Wedgwood, which I really do like Wedgwood as the backup goaltender wherever he goes.
Good point. Me too. Me too.
So I really like this for them. I really like this for the Nashville Predators, and I have them finishing 2nd. I have the Avalanche finishing 1st. I assume you have the Avalanche finishing 1st as well in the Central Division. I mean, you can't go wrong with Nathan MacKinnon. You can't go wrong with Mikko Rantanen. You can't go wrong with Cale Makar. That is a 3-headed dragon right there. One of the, I mean, you slay one beast, you know, what's that saying? You know, the mythological saying, you cut off one head, 2 more pop up. I mean,
I forget.
It's like from Greek mythology. It's from like Percy Jackson or something. I don't
All
know.
right.
But anyways, that's a 3-headed dragon that you just really don't want to go up against when they are playing at their best. Again, I saw them live in Toronto. It's different hockey. It's a different breed right there. They're so fast. They're so accurate. And they're just so great all together. So love the Colorado Avalanche. They finished 1st for me.
Yeah, it's the Dallas Stars at 1 for me, pal. I gotta look. I've been talking about the Dallas Stars, and I've been talking about Wyatt Johnson, Thomas Harley for forever. And look,
I'm gonna have to get you a Stars jersey.
Justice and Noonan, the backup. Look, the backup in Colorado might actually end up being the guy who is the better goaltender when all things are said and done. I got my concerns about Alexander Gorgiev's steal.
Yeah,
and if you're talking about where you're putting Dallas over Colorado. Yeah, they don't have a Cale Makar. That's not close. Miro Heiskanen is not Cale Makar. Cale Makar is in another echelon of fantasy and just quality. And they do not have a Nathan MacKinnon, but I think they have a lot more overall talent and balance than the Colorado Avalanche. And I'm not just saying this to get at you. I'm going to take Dallas betting-wise, and in a 7-game series, 9 times out of 10. That's just how strongly I feel about them. And if you're talking about, we were just mentioning Saros to Ottinger.
Stick with your guns.
Ottinger over Gorgiev all day, every day of the week, and even on Sundays. Stars come in at 1. I'm going to stick to my guns there. Thomas Harley, double circle. Wyatt Johnson, double circle. Everyone's talking about it. That is going to be a dangerous line of Wyatt Johnston, Rupe Hintz, and Jason Robertson. Not taking anything away from the Nathan MacKinnon line. Not even close. That's my breakdown. I appreciate yours. Pacific Division next week. And the week after that, Steele, I don't know if we'll do it this week. Might be a bit premature. Waiver wire Mondays every single Monday from here until May, baby.
Might be a little premature to get the to get those going.
I'm ready to go, Steele.
But we're ready to go. I just want to pull up the odds real quick.
Yeah, you might as well.
Division, Central Division, real quick, if I can find this on FanDuel. I know.
I think I can.
It's around here somewhere. Here it is. Division, Central Division. I had it up before. Yeah. So the Colorado Avalanche are leading the division right now at plus 210. Then you got the Stars at plus 230, Preds at 490. They actually have the Minnesota Wild with the fourth best odds at plus 750. Actually, scratch that. They're tied with the Winnipeg Jets at plus 750. So Avalanche and Stars are right there, neck and neck. Preds are coming in third from the FanDuel odds. But those are the odds. Hey, make a parlay. Get those division winners going. You can put a couple of $5, sprinkle some money on there. You'll make some big bucks if it ends up paying off at the end of the season. That's the episode. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. And from both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your drafts. If you haven't done so already, we wish you good luck with all your bets this season. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.